Hello everybody and welcome back to another important discussion video on the MBT Yu-Gi-Oh channel. I consider myself a modern day philosopher, like Socrates, Aristotle, and as a result, I'm going to be discussing the most important seminal issue of our time, that is, of course, Genesys as a concept. For those of you that don't know, Genesys is an alternative way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! That was introduced about a year ago. It was introduced alongside a significant amount of lofty promises and exciting updates about the future of the format. So today, we're going to take stock of what's happened in that year, what may happen in the future, and if they accomplished their goals. And to help me yap, I've got two professional yappers. First up, Peeps Yu-Gi-Oh!
Hello, everybody. Yes, as this is, as people call it, the Yugi-tuber format, we are going to talk about it. Hilarious criticism, by the way, but it is kind of funny. I can't.
Industry plant-ass motherfucker. And to help us talk about Genesys, we have the person from whom Genesys was stolen. LC is here, a Canadian Highlander player and Genesys toe dipper.
Yes, I have a lot of knowledge about one of these things and a very minimal amount of knowledge about the other one, but enough, I think, that I can engage in this conversation in a reasonable way, and I can ask you guys questions, at least, that are going to be compelling.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this discussion because I really enjoy a lot of the content you've been putting out, as I already glazed you for earlier in this call. I just appreciate the macro-level look on card design from a perspective of a player of many different TCGs, so I have enjoyed your content a lot.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Elsie's channel, of course, it'll be linked in the description. You really should check it out. You can also check it out Wednesday on the MBT Yu-Gi-Oh! Twitch channel where we steal content. But first, this video is sponsored by Zombie Waves. This week, I've been grinding my eyes out trying to make Pumpkin work in Master Duel, and it's just not happening. These cards don't do enough, don't play around enough, and are way too expensive to even justify. So, I've been taking out my rage on other zombies in Zombie Waves. Zombie Waves is a 3D bullet heaven roguelite shooter that's just celebrated its 3-year anniversary. 20 million people have downloaded the app, and most of them aren't even doing it out of spite for Delta of Invitation being a UR. Unlike the 90% of games determined by the Max C minigame, no two games of Zombie Waves play the same, since you'll be choosing randomized upgrades to shape your build for a massive payoff when you face the Horde. There's a ton of different weapons to choose from with different abilities, including burn, freezing, splitting bullets, and meteors, so you'll be right at home if you've ever summoned 5 times. There's so much free stuff as well, simply by completing easy tasks and challenges that you'll be able to jump in from anywhere. But if you need your pot sweetened, and I know you all do, you can get a special starter pack worth $50 either by clicking my link in the description or by scanning this QR code. That'll get you 3 weapon material pull vouchers, 2 Robot Decryptors, an equipment draw voucher, and 888 diamonds. Once again, thanks to Zombie Waves for sponsoring this video. Now back to it. All right, so I want to begin by talking about just sort of the inaugural post that kicked off Genesys. This came out September 24th of 2025, but I believe it was a couple days after the actual physical announcement. So in this post, Konami revealed this new format, Yu-Gi-Oh! Genesys, and set out the rules, which are strikingly similar to a Magic the Gathering format, Canadian Highlander, but they also set out some goals under this What's Next section that I think are pretty interesting. So let's begin by talking about the who it's for section of this article. So I'm just going to read that out here. It says, Genesys was designed for everyone, but is mostly meant as a big tent to provide good and fun home for all sorts of duelists looking for a less complicated game, duelists who are new to the game, duelists who have had a favorite deck and want their favorite deck to be a little more competitive, anyone looking for a new experience or change of pace, duelists who love a deck building challenge, and everyone who just can't get enough dueling. So a couple of those are like Genesys is for, like breathing sentient adults, right? Like that's, a crazy crossover here. But there are a couple shout outs there that I don't know if I agree with respect to the target audience and what the format's accomplished. So I guess I'll start with Jordan. Do you want to talk a little bit about if Genesys was able to deliver on these?
I guess I'll start from the top of the list, which is duelists looking for a less complicated game. The answer is yes. I know Yu-Gi-Oh! Is complex by nature, but the very fact that Link monsters aren't in the format, and like pendulums as well, but Link monsters, a big one, means there's not a bunch of hidden text on every effect monster in the game. This is something that I've used to talk about with respect to something like IP Masquerena or SP Little Knight. Even though SP Little Knight is like a really balanced and fine card, it just makes it so every effect monster in the game also says you can send this effect monster and one other effect monster you control to the graveyard to special summon SP Little Knight. Like, every monster just has additional text on it due to the existence of links. So just by nature, the first bullet point is true. Duelists who are new to the game, I don't think this one really attributes to that one at all.
I'd like to kick this one over to Elsie as someone who is newer to Yu-Gi-Oh! Did you feel like hopping into something like Genesys with an additional ban list with 1 trillion cards on it was more daunting, presented like an interesting challenge or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting that you think they succeeded on Duelists looking for a less complicated game, because I was actually going to say that I think it doesn't succeed on that front. Yes, in gameplay, Genesys is simpler because of the things that you mentioned. I think that's true. But the deck building component is like much more enthusiast level and complicated. So I think that I don't know that I necessarily think they failed, but I think it's kind of a push. I think for players who just like pull a deck list from somewhere and show up to a tournament and play, yes, the game-to-game interactions are probably less complicated. But if you're like looking to get into it from the outset, it's a really daunting process to look at this list of 100 points to start to unpack like exactly what actually matters. And it's interesting, when I got into Yu-Gi-Oh, Genesys was like one of the things where I was like, oh, this is cool. I'd love to play an officially supported pointed format, like points managed format. And I very quickly realized that like I was going to need to go play like hundreds of hours of advanced before I was going to be able to engage in the deck building portion of Genesys, at least. I think had Genesys been an option on Master Duel, for example, and I could have just like gone to a website, picked up a deck list, like crafted it and started playing, like, yeah, it would have been more accessible. But I think that the trade-off there is that like the deck building complexity does start to push it more towards the kind of enthusiast level of things.
I can capitulate to that. I think that makes sense. Yeah.
It is kind of weird. I think we as lifelong Yu-Gi-Oh players enter this discussion with sort of an understanding that the deck building process in Yu-Gi-Oh largely doesn't exist. Like, when we talk about a less complicated game, we default to thinking about the in-game interactions because so much of Yu-Gi-Oh is like, time to find a list online to net deck and just like walk with it, right? But I do agree that like building this deck, it would be a nightmare if I were newer to the game and didn't have like an encyclopedic understanding of what was on the list and what it meant for a card to be at like 4 rather than 5, right?
And I think there's more matchup win percent to kind of like squeeze out of deck building in something like Genesys than there is in Advanced. Like, I played like a suboptimal build of like Mitsurugi Fiendsmith for like the first like 2 months that I played Yu-Gi-Oh! And like, yeah, I probably could have gotten like 2 or 3%, maybe even like 5 or 6% win rate for play if I played like a slightly more optimized version with better non-engine. But in Genesys, I think that like there's a real opportunity to get significant deck building advantage. And that's something that's a lot harder to access as a newer player.
Yeah, I agree.
It's strange to be like, it is in that regard very difficult for entrenched Yu-Gi-Oh players to engage with, because I know a significant amount of Yu-Gi-Oh players just do not engage with deck building at all. And there was, not to go off on a tangent, but there's like this Jesse Cotton video where he's talking about his main deck and he's playing 3 Fenrir. And he's like, I would ask you, can you identify why Fenrir is in this slot over a different piece of non-engine? And like everyone was like, not really, no, it's just a card you want to see. And he's like, well, that's not, there's theory behind this that you have to be able to understand.
That's such a good point, you know, and I'm happy you push back on what I said with this point, true too, because something that I think when we say people don't engage with deck building, it comes off as like an admonishment or an insult. It sounds very pious when we say that, but I don't think, I certainly don't mean it that way. And it has frustrated me in the past when people will operate off the, criticisms based on the fact that they don't engage in deck building. But still, I get it though. Like, so much of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, especially in the TCG, has been, we see the new cards that come out in the OCG. We make our format assessments off of those cards. We already know what the deck was supposed to do or what other people have done with the deck months upon months upon months before we get it. And then we get it here, and people already know what the format's going to look like. Unless, once we get those new cards, somebody has figured something out, and then everybody else just goes down that route instead. I think a great example is in Power of the Elements format. Elsie, I'm going to talk about some TCG history, so sorry, a little out of your depth here. But
it's okay,
Joseph
I like
will know
learning.
what I'm talking about. Yeah. So, actually, that's a good point. You do find this stuff interesting. So Power of the Elements format, Joseph, you'll remember, what was supposed to be the best deck in that format when it came over here?
On release, it was supposed to be Sprite, like quite literally 100% like representation in Top Cut.
Yes, it was supposed to be Sprite because Sprite, you know, had like a bunch of level 2s. It could search like there's a ton of different like interactions that we already knew about that the OCG was doing.
Right.
What actually turned out to be the best deck, I don't know if it like percentage wise, but people made the evaluation that Danger Tier Limit was in our format much better.
I don't know if it converted as much, but it was certainly the better deck. It was difficult to play.
But, you know, even in spite of those things, people figured out Danger Tier Limit was good, and then people just switched to building the top Danger Tier Limit lists, you know? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with net decking. There's nothing wrong with playing the best deck or anything like that. But the process of deck building just has not existed really in people's minds so much over on our side of the format. So
a format like this is asking you to not only like re-entrench yourself into Yu-Gi-Oh, but engage with a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh that so few players even have the vocabulary to deal with. No, I do think that makes it a lot more complicated. I know a lot of people who have been like, I'll play Genesys, just hand me a list, but won't play it otherwise.
At the same time, like the deck building portion is, to me, like some of the most like inspirational and fun portion of
so much
playing
fucking fun.
TCGs.
It's so much fun.
And like, it's interesting, like when you look at Magic, less so now, but certainly historically, there was this kind of like mythos around like, oh, the new set comes out and all the best pro teams go and like rent a house where they put 15 people and they just grind the format for like 2 weeks before the pro tour. And someone's going to come with some deck that no one thought of. And like, this was like a really cool part of following like high level Magic for a long time. And you know, digital clients also contribute to the erosion of this. Like people just find stuff faster. But something that I think is really cool about Genesys is that because the points list is so big and there are so many moving parts, there really is this opportunity for someone to find something and to break something out at a tournament that has not been found in some other context already. And so I think like in that regard, Genesys is really succeeding. It doesn't really fit on, well, I guess it's duelists who love a deck building challenge, a love even a deck building challenge. They're obviously, I think what we're all alluding to is that Genesys has smashed it out of the park on exactly this bullet point for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I not to deep throat my own hot dog here, but I you know, I think a lot of the struggles.
Just gonna drop that on us.
Yeah.
We met like 18 minutes ago or something.
Oh my god, yeah.
A lot of the struggle that Genesys has had to take off within the community, I think, is because of this like deck building aspect, right? It really does benefit you to have that vocabulary for deck building, as you put it, Joseph. So the people who really like it are the people that do have that, and the people that don't like it are the people that don't think it's that important or don't find a lot of enjoyment, even if they do have that skill. But, you know, when deck lists are established and people will see what can be possible in that format, people are more interested in it. I think something I built that is causing a lot of that is that Ogdoadic Mitsurugi list that you put up on your channel.
I think I've gotten more comments about that list than anything ever I've made in Genesys, of people being like, I didn't know this was playable. I didn't know these cards could be played in this way. Like, I'm going to try out the format because I like this list.
Yeah, I'm ready to fire it off. It looks fun.
Be a part of that, right? You know, it's like
people will look at a card that's 51 points and they'll go, oh, this deck is unplayable, and then they just close the deck building screen. And it's like, that's the thing I'm trying to like, whatever. We don't have to go down that route. That's my own little tangent. But I guess we can just move on to the next bullet, which is duelists who have always had a favorite deck and want their favorite deck to be a little more competitive. Obviously, there's nuance to this, but I unequivocally think this is, there's a lot of examples of how this is true. I like this one a lot.
I do want to say this one I'm a little less concerned about, just because it's so clearly like you can kind of see it dripping off this press release, but they are trying very hard to tap into the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh market, which is lapsed Yu-Gi-Oh players. Like, it is just unlikely you're going to get like a 12-year-old into this game these days. It does happen frequently. But the biggest market of people are like 35-year-old millennials with disposable income that remember the Blue Eyes White Dragon, right? A significant amount of these bullet points, especially this one, feel like they are geared specifically towards that. Like, I think it is true that pretty much everyone's favorite deck is more competitive in Genesys, with a couple of exceptions for decks that are pendulums or links, of course. It is just because Genesys is a little lower powered. I don't think it's like that much of a deviation.
This same thing happens with Canadian Highlander. Like, for a long time, the format is exceptionally high power now, but for like an extended period of time, like especially in like the 2010s, you would have people coming to the format saying like, oh, I miss being able to play X stick card that I used to play in my standard deck that's not playable in any other Eternal format. And it's like, okay, well, you can register that in Canadian Highlander. Like, are you still going to lose to the Storm player? Like, yes, probably, but it's going to be more competitive here than it would be elsewhere. And like, you can get people in the door by saying like, hey, come play your favorite cards. Like, I can't promise you that you're gonna win every game, but you will win some, probably, against the other people playing their favorite cards.
This is also impacting the ban list in Genesys. Like, it's so clear seeing things like Pot of Greed at 30, a card that probably is underpointed based on like how unpointed archetypes can just jam it. But I think it's deliberately kept that low so people can be like, oh my god, I can play Pot of Greed. Like, I remember Pot of Greed. I remember Delinquent Duo, you know? So I and to be clear, I don't disagree with that. I think that's a really good sell of the format. It's just when it comes to like the health of the format, I don't take it too seriously, I guess.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like not a realistic thing to promise people. Like, you can't tell someone your deck that you like, I'm reading your mind right now and I know that exactly your deck will be playable in this format. Like, it's just, that's not a thing. And I think anyone who's like approaching playing a trading card game competitively should be able to at least internalize some amount of that. Yeah.
and you can watch cartoons on Saturday again and your parents will get back together. Yeah. Like, you know.
Your guinea pig will come back. I think this bullet point, man, it's tough because I do think Genesys does allow for enough of these decks, or like this, enough older decks are more playable in this format, but I think a significant amount of them still are not playable to the point where this bullet point should have been like a selling point. And we're probably going to talk about our critiques of the format at some point in this Yapathon. The high amount of like the truly restrictive amount of points that are on certain decks on the list is something that works directly against this bullet point and against their messaging on this. But, you know, this is like one of the macro level points that people have had as a complaint towards this format for a long time now.
I think we have beat the deck building to death. I think like the sell of this format is that it's really fun to build decks, if not a little challenging. And the other two are just nothing. Anyone looking for a new experience or anyone who just can't get enough dueling, like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, it is a new format that can be played on an extra day for YCSs. I mean, I know in the EU, they've had side events on Fridays and stuff for forever now, but, you know, now that Genesys is here, we have events on Fridays that people can play in here. So I guess it meets the last bullet point because there is more dueling you can do.
Oh, but they hate this fucking format in the EU. They, for some reason, like in Latin America, they're doing Genesys regionals like at 250 people, and in EU, they're getting like 4. Like, just people will not play this format.
I don't know if the regionals in Latin America are getting that many.
They
I think
are.
it's the YC. What?
Yeah, go to regional reporting in LATAM. It's like 150, 200, 254 Genesys events. It's unbelievable.
My bet is that cost plays a role there. Like, Genesys from a cost standpoint is like a lot more accessible, and in LATAM that's like a more relevant detail than it would be in Europe.
Forever for them to get new sets in LATAM.
Yeah,
it's
like card distribution is really bad in Latin America. Yeah,
you see this in like all sorts of card games for what it's worth. Like in Star Wars Unlimited, another game that I play, like the LATAM deck lists, like people are playing like 54 cards. 50 is the max deck size in that game. They're like playing like completely unreasonable ratios, but it's an availability thing. I think it's
yeah. It's so interesting, Joseph.
I know, it's shocking. Genesys is secretly just a Spanish-speaking format.
Yeah, I guess. Dang.
And Portuguese. Kevin won a YCS. So I think that's probably it with respect to if Genesys has delivered for these people. I mean, if I had to sum it up, I would say it delivered the most for deck builders, and the rest of them, maybe not so much. You know, it seems like we're always trying to invent a Yu-Gi-Oh! That isn't complicated, and I don't find it particularly surprising that we seem to have fucked up again, but it is, I guess, at least a little bit upsetting that despite the fact that the in-game process isn't as complex as it is in the TCG, it is still quite complex, and it comes with the added bonus of being like, and figure out how many points your deck is.
And also, like, the updates are frequent enough that your deck might cease to be legal every 2 months, and you gotta keep up with that upkeep. There's definitely some issues.
The next thing I want to talk about is the infrastructure. So also in this article, they talk about like the plans for the future of Genesys. And just as a I guess I would say, spoiler, these all fell through. Originally, Genesys was intended to be built around not running at the same events as normal YCSs, but running as a side event at those YCSs, then having their own dedicated YCSs, as well as, and I guess I'm doing a little bit of creative interpretation of this article, a dedicated regional circuit. That has not come to pass. Instead, each individual regional has both a TCG element and a Genesys element, and each individual YCS has a Genesys main event on Friday and Sunday and an advanced main event on Saturday and Sunday. I kind of want to pick y'all's brains about this. Do you think this was maybe like too ambitious? Do you think they backed off it because of player numbers? Like, what do you think? What do you think's going on here?
I would guess it was player number related. Like, obviously, like the costs associated with running large events are immense. And if you don't think you're going to get the attendance to justify them, it's, I think, easy to envision Konami getting cold feet about this kind of thing. I think that the way that the Genesys events are being run now, where they are kind of like on the same day as YCSs, on the Fridays for YCSs, is clever. One thing that I would think would be kind of interesting to see them do going forward is to incorporate, if both formats genuinely are going to be like officially supported, it would be interesting to see them create like hybrid events where you had to play both. You had to be like a good advanced player and a good Genesys player. This is something that happens like at the Magic Pro Tour, where you have to be a skilled limited player and you have to be able to play like standard or modern, whatever format it is that is the constructed format at the event. And I think that like maybe that's like the long-term future if they want to actually support the event, is like support the format. Sorry, it's like, but then also for like the turbo competitive players, give them a reason why they need to practice and be good at this format as well.
I mean, not to go on a tangent here, are you familiar with the history of a battle pack draft?
I am not, although I would be very intrigued. Yu-Gi-Oh! Limited is fascinating to me.
I love this. I love we get to explain this to you. Oh my god.
First off, I want to say the Magic the Gathering like Pro Tour thing of doing like constructed one day, limited another day, I think is just perfect. I love testing like well-rounded players. I think that's like super cool in card games. Yu-Gi-Oh! Adopted this for a short period of time, about a year. They had 3 individual sets and 1 bonus set called battle packs, and they were designed to be drafted. So the way that YCSs went during this year was it was Swiss rounds until Top Cut, and then Top Cut would pair off into 8-person pods and draft out.
Oh no. And Top Cut draft is not good.
This was a fucking nightmare. It was massively disliked by the community. It turned them off of limited formats in general, but also alternate formats for years afterwards.
Oh, that's so brutal.
And it had these like tack-on effects with reporting where like Yu-Gi-Oh! Players who were uncomfortable or didn't understand limited would like go to an event, see who the first place deck list was, and just be like, oh, that person won the event. But it's like, no, that deck list got top 16th. That person was just a good drafter, had a good pool. The sets weren't perfectly balanced. And to compensate, they changed one of the YCSs later to be main event draft and then Top Cut constructed, which also was bad because of the cost of the thing. People were like, I have to play 2 days with this dog shit limited deck, and then I get to Top Cut to see if I was supposed to spend $1,000 on like a Necroz list.
Yeah, that's rough.
It was very, very poorly managed, but as a result, I think they would probably shy away from like a 2-day event that tries 2 formats for almost exclusively that reason.
But I want them to do it with like Worlds. Like I want to make the best players in the world do this.
Yu-Gi-Oh! They love specializing their players. They're like, this is the master duel we're playing, and it's so frustrating for duelists like Ryan Yu, who legitimately are good in like 4 different formats, like maybe best in the world in like TCG and Master Duel, but we'll never get to show that off. Like that sucks.
Like to me, mixed format is the, well, I mean, it's the past because that's what Magic has always done, but it's the future too. It's just like such a cool way of demonstrating skill, and like, especially where Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game that rewards like deep knowledge so significantly, like asking players to get a very deep level of knowledge in more than one area, I think is even cooler.
I guess if I have to talk about the logistics piece of it, I think now, since we're doing 2 main events, one Genesys event and one advanced format event, especially in the EU where ticket prices or entry prices are higher, they're like 45. whereas in the NA it's still about 25 for entry for both. I think we should start thinking about a YCS as like a convention ticket, and you buy one ticket for the weekend, and you don't have to buy different entries for both formats. Or if you do want to participate in both formats, there's like a bundle deal that you can get, because come on, $90 from the EU perspective to play both formats. Like, yeah, no wonder it doesn't take off there. That's like, if you already know how to play Advanced, you have a deck for Advanced, you've never played Genesis before, why would you enter it alongside Advanced when you have to spend damn near 100 whatever currency to do it? I think that's something that, and they should honestly do that in the EU here. Like, the ticket should be for the weekend to participate in the YCS in both formats, or only one if you choose to do so, right? I think that's my biggest complaint about the infrastructure of the format.
It's fascinating because like you said, like, like 90 euros or whatever to like play all the events you're going to play on a weekend at a tournament. And I was like, that sounds great. Like, Magic tournaments are
Magics are so expensive.
So expensive. Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
yeah.
I know there are big differences in pricing and the way the price structures work. So like,
I was paying $60 for a GP in 2013.
I think
you can buy a house with that money now.
Yeah, that's right. I could have bought a car for my GP Vancouver entry. But then like, and you're entering side events, and those are like $30 or $40 each. Like, I think like the last GP I went to, I probably spent like $250 of Canadian funny money on various event entries over the course of the whole weekend. So like, it's a very different context.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I remember being really excited for this first explanation of how it was going to be run. I was like, oh, cool. Parallel tournament infrastructure is really nice. But there was just no way. Like, from the get, I was like, yeah, there's just no way. I'm glad that they found a compromise instead of just being like, we're not doing the regionals. My understanding from talking to people in Konami is that they have been surprised by how popular Genesys has been, especially at the WCQ, where it got like 500 people, parallel to the main event. That's not enough to support a regional scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough because the regional scene is so important for locals' interest, right? Because regionals are very important for the player base, as often they are a lot of people's biggest event that they will go to is just a regional. A lot of people don't make travel costs and plane tickets and hotels to go to a tier 3 event. Quite often people will be like, I'm going to go to the regional this weekend, and that's going to be like my thing for the year or whatever. And people will go to locals to test for the regionals. That's that loop of gameplay that people have for the competitive scene is very important. So it's a shame that the Genesys regional like events are not bigger than they are, but I think that I'm not too worried about that. I think that is just a product of the format's new. The community sentiment just hasn't been built up around it yet. I think that's just something that's going to grow with time. It's hard to expect that a Genesys regional circuit is going to already be getting hundreds of people when regionals themselves get about, 200, 300 in NA. Yeah, I'm not too worried about that, nor do I think they're doing necessarily a bad job.
I have a somewhat tangential question about this for the two of you. Do you think the results of the WCQ Genesys tournament were like negative for this as well, where it was like really dominated in the top 8 by Blitzkrieg? Like, is that a situation where you think that might like have pushed them to run less events because they're worried about having the format like look like this right now while it's still being ironed out, like in terms of finding all the kinks? Or do you think that doesn't really factor for them at all?
I think that's fucking Yu-Gi-Oh, baby.
Yeah, 6 out of 8 top 8 slots. That's just pod racing.
That's a fucking Tuesday, man.
To jump on this question, because I think it is fascinating and I do have a lot of opinions on it. We didn't used to evaluate Top Cut based off of top 8. This is a very recent change that happened early this year, late last year sometime.
Yeah, it was around this time. It was this regional season, so it would be like late 2024 maybe.
So Top Cut used to be based on player attendance, right? So quite often at YCSs and larger events, it was top 32 or top 64 was actually quite frequent. This is a new thing for Top Cuts to be evaluated solely as top 8, because no matter the tier 3 event, they just do top 8 now, regardless of size, right?
To kind of, not to butt in here, but for a tournament of the Genesys WCQ events, size, it would have been top 32.
Like in a playoff, you mean?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
The only people that do the playoff or top cut is top 8 now, no matter what, right? So when I see a top 8 of 7 of them being one deck, in this case Blitzclick, that doesn't really like I don't view that as total tier 0 quote unquote format dominance. I mean, you have to zoom out a bit and still see the rest of that top 32, but for some reason I don't know what happened to the object permanence of the community, but that's just not how we evaluated top cuts anymore. Whatever, that's my own criticism of the community.
The same thing's happening in the TCG2. The top 8 of the WCQ was 7 of one deck, but the larger top 16 was very diverse. It just happened to be that the top 8 were the 7 Cool Toon players.
And they all lost.
Yeah, they all got their ass beat.
Yeah, but still though, to empathize with the community, the optics of that are still bad. You know, the optics of that are bad when you have an explicit bullet point that says duelists who have always had a favorite deck and want their favorite deck to be a little more competitive, and then the top 8 of a tournament is all the newest deck that came out. It's like, well, are we for real right now? What is the mission statement here? Because clearly this is a new avenue for other archetypes that are less playable in advance to perform more competitively in a decent format, which is fine, but the bad optics come from not only the new decks performing so well, but the older decks that don't need the amount of balance applied to them being overbalanced. And it's just that leads to, there are 2 macro level complaints with Genesys format that I have, and one of them, the major one, is the overpointing of older modern archetypes. And a lot of people have that complaint, which is the thing that's actively turning people away from the format. And I try to tell people that they should still try the format, but it's hard for me to advocate for Genesys when that is a very valid criticism. You know, that is the most valid criticism of the format. So, all very long answer, roundabout answer to your question, but it is a bad look for the format, even though I think playing against Blitzkrieg can be pretty enjoyable. The optics of it are still very negative and very present.
I was going to say, do you find they're more reticent to take cards off the list than they are to add points to cards? Like, have they taken the approach of being more additive than kind of like doing both? Because I know, like, in Canadian Highlander, like, this is like an identifiable problem. Cards go on the list, and like, obviously we're working with 10, not 100, but like, cards go on the list at 1 and they just stay at 1 forever, regardless of whether they see 0 play. They're just at 1, and there's this kind of like memory around the card that means that it can't come off. And to me, it feels a little bit like, even from the initial list, there were like some cards that went on at pretty high values that Konami seemed to be like kind of terrified of, and it seems to me like they've been somewhat like reticent to pull some of those off the list.
I could not have asked for a better segue to our next topic, where I wanted to talk about the points list. So, like you alluded to, the points list released with 10 trillion hits. Thankfully, fewer than the OCG Genesis list, which is just
God,
a bag of worms. I am not interested in dipping my hand
Yeah, we don't
into.
even have to talk about that. I don't want to even. I don't even want to. Like,
but a billion jillion hits that have been kind of massaged for the last year. I wanted to ask about your reactions to the list, if you think the list needs to be managed differently, if you're happy with what has been done to the cards on it, what you would like to see in the future with respect to the points list exactly.
I honestly think that this is one of the most interesting things to talk about in regards to how Genesys has evolved through to its anniversary, because there has been a lot of positive stuff. I mean, nuance, there's been some negative stuff too, right? But there's a lot of nuance on this topic, and they have, I feel, done a good job of not being just additive or taking cards off the list. They've not only have they been very balanced and measured in that, but they're also getting better about it as points lists evolve and new ones come out, especially with respect to the most recent one, where they took a bunch of consistency spells to much lower point values. I mean, some of these reductions are massive. We're talking about like original Sinful Spoils from 100 to 17, you know, an 83 point reduction. 1-for-1 from 91 to 19. Just these cards that they initially pointed super high because their first stated philosophy was that consistency cards need to be hit, but they have backed off of that. And I think that's great. That is super important for that adjustment in philosophy, because I think consistency cards are very important for older, weaker decks to be more competitive and have a slot in the format. I really can't give you an answer on if they are more additive or negative in terms of the points list, because I think they have a good balance right now. I feel like they could be better, but still, that's how I would address that point.
One thing I noticed when I kind of like saw the list is that it seems like they started to get better at pre-hitting cards that they know are going to be too good in the format. Like, that's something like when I was first getting into the game and like I was aware of Genesys and I was playing Advanced, and like Cool Tune got released in the TCG, and I was like, these cards seem very powerful and they are not really pointed in any substantial manner. And it's like, we knew they were good because we knew they were good in the OCG. So it's like, I felt like there was some missing of that, but it does seem like they've gotten better at doing that as well, even.
A little bit. I think they did that very well with the Ritual of Light and Darkness archetype. They heavily pointed that. So
although it is still playable. It is still
It is still playable. Yep. But it is refreshing to see that they are willing to be like, some of these new cards we know they're going to be strong in advance, and we don't want all the top tables of the both formats to be the same, because they saw that happen with Cool Tune and they were, right. That was somewhat of a frustration for the community. So they adopted that change in philosophy too, where they are willing to hit points or apply points to certain decks. I do think they need to be even a little more heavy-handed on it, because again, the optics of the Blitzclick situation in top 8 probably shouldn't happen every single time a tier 3 event happens with a new set that came out just before it, because that is going to be frustrating for a lot of people.
I think there's almost this perception, though, of like there are Genesis archetypes and there are advanced archetypes now. Like Blitzclick is not seeing play at advanced, right? So like in some ways it's kind of okay.
And total Genesis cultural victory, by the way. One thing that happens every time a new set comes out is every pro releases a Metafy like masterclass on every single archetype in there. And the Blitzclick one, they're like, I did both an advanced and a Genesis version, and I'm like, yeah, okay. No one's buying the advanced version, but I appreciate that. Like that is that is kind of a deal. I do want to real quick circle back to the discussion of removal, because one thing that really has aggravated me is they are not taking cards off this list. Cards will go down. You'll see cards moved from like 5 to 3 to 1, but is there a reason Forbidden Chalice is at 1? Certainly with staples, it makes a little sense. You want there to be some sort of opportunity cost to including these cards at all. But what about like archetypal cards currently languishing at like 1 or 2 or 3? If they're not boxing out an explicit FTK, it does a lot for the mental load of this format, where people already have to internalize this like 700 item Excel spreadsheet to just be like, yeah, we can just cut half of these off without any change to what's playable.
I would say that that's like something that would benefit the format. Like, I'm like scrolling through the list as we're talking, and it's like, I think it's 600 or 700 cards, right? Like it's genuinely like an astonishing number. And it feels like a lot of these 1s and 2s, especially like just from my looking at them, like we could find other ways to box some of these things out that didn't involve adding a bunch of cards down at 1.
I mean, for instance, Alistair stuff, the new invoked stuff is really powerful. So Alistair is a 4-point card, and the card that searches it, Iwas, is a 2-point card. But Iwas's only utility in the deck really is to search Alistair and be a wind for the archetype. So could we not have made Alistair 6 or even 7 to like compensate for the fact that one of these is free and just not point the other one so there's not 2 things on the list? Like, does Archfiend's Usurpation need to be at 3 instead of 0? Does the 2 Archmage Continuouses need to be at 3 instead of 0? Does Astral Karibo need to be at 3 instead of 0? And it's like, I really can't make a case for it, and you wouldn't have these weird jump scares while deck building and third-party clients that are like, did you know this card is 3 for no reason?
I don't know. This is where I disagree with this point a lot. I have always been a defender of large lists. As daunting as they can seem, the minute somebody gets to a deck building screen, I don't think that everybody just goes, oh my god, I don't have every point value memorized. What do I do? It's hard for me to see that as a criticism. Or, I don't know, whatever. This is just my own personal thing. But in terms of the point value spread across an archetype, even though it does create situations where some cards have lower point values just like spread across everything. I think that it is meaningful in the sense that it reduces the space for non-engine that can be played. And I guess your rebuttal to that would just be like, well, just make one card more points.
Okay, even if you don't want to consolidate points, just for power level reasons. Why is Danger Dogman 3 points? There's a lot of these that are bad, you know?
No, I agree. If we want to talk about cards that don't need to be pointed on there at all, sure, I'll agree with you there. But in terms of things like the Fairy Tale hits or like Iwas versus Alistair, I think points being spread across an engine is not necessarily just bad on the face of it when that engine is a good engine that deserves points. That's where I sit on that. Like, the fact that a playset of Iwas is 6 points is meaningful in deck building. When you say a playset of Alistair is 9 points, a playset of Sacred Beast whatever is 12 points or something, you know? Just having, like, what is it going to cost me to play a playset of this card? That is, like, in that mindset, I like that.
Again, I don't want to split hairs here, but with respect to Iwas, like, its utility is just to find Alistair. There's never a scenario where you'd play just the Iwas, but not the Alistair. In contrast to, like, Fairy Tale, where you are playing both Matchgiru and Ball and Wickhat, I understand a spread for some archetypes, but not all of them.
Are you always playing 3 and 3? Because that's, I think, one of the interesting things about, like, the Genesis points list compared to something like the Canadian Highlander list is Canadian Highlander is singleton. So the points really matter at a granular level. Like, you know that, you know, you can't put Time Vault and Tinker in the same deck because they're 8 and 3 points, or 7 and 4. I can't remember what they are right now. But, like, comparatively in Genesis, like, it's kind of like what Peeps was alluding to. Like, you, by having lower point values on things, you are putting this kind of explicit cost on getting access to the consistency of playing more than one of these cards, which I can see the argument for. I don't have, like, enough, like, detailed information to engage in this argument of, like, where exactly the points should be assigned. But I do think there's, like, something to be said if you have a situation where, like, the cards aren't being played at max points or at max copies each, then yeah, maybe it does make sense to spread the points out, because if you don't, then maybe you just play, like, 3 of the tutor and only 1 of the actual pointed one if you put all the points in the thing that you're going to find, right? Like, I can kind of see it in that context, but obviously, I don't have full information to engage in this discussion.
For whatever reason, it just fits comfier in my brain. I don't know why, because it seems like it should be more complicated. But when I think about if a playset of Iwas is 6, you know, and I have it conceptualized in my brain that a playset of Iwas is 6, but I want to include DD Crow somewhere. I go like, okay, well, I know a playset of Iwas is 6. I can remove one of those to make it 4, and I can put a DD Crow in there to, there's just, I don't know. This is my own personal, it's hard for me to put this as, like, positive or negative, because I like it, I guess. It's very a biased opinion that I have, I'll admit.
I guess I would say, like, I understand that perspective. I happen to disagree with it. I think we can both agree that there's a bunch of shit on here that doesn't need to be on here.
Correct. I agree.
Rather than play with a list that moves something from 3 to 2 to 1, you could take Knight Armed Dragon, the Armored Knight Dragon, off today.
Yeah.
There's no utility to that card being on the list. And
I forgot that was on there.
It means that sometimes you're going to be playing a game and you're going to be like, it's what the fuck? What do you mean it's points? And that sucks.
Yeah. And so removal, great, you know, to your point, the difference in removal and reduction, I think, is important. And boy, oh boy, I think we have to be quicker on, if a card has not performed competitively in its time since this format started,
it's been a year.
What are we doing?
Yeah,
it's been a year. It's been a year.
Star Seraph Scepter and Star Seraph Sovereignty can come off. They are 5 apiece. They said pay 30 for Stick Chair.
Yeah, I
don't know. I think that, okay, with that in mind, I guess I would say, as a whole, how do you feel about the list now rather than, you know, at the genesis of Genesis? What do you think about what has been changed? I think we're, like, circling around the fact that we do like the changes. We wish they were just faster or more complete.
Right. I mean, the answer to that is frustrating, because There are so many positives that have happened with the points list and the changes in philosophy that have been positive in the format's, breaking in its shoes, as I call it. But the points list is still the thing that is keeping so many people away that have had an older favorite modern deck that feel that they can't play it, or not even just feel that they can't play it, truly can't play it, like Fluanderies. I'm harping on or Ancient Gear. Like, some of these Ancient Gear cards are a gazillion points.
Good.
You say good, but like the deck has done nothing. The promise of this format, as they have discussed multiple times, is cards see less play, they get less points. Cards see more play, they get more points. Okay, Whisker Blitzclick is the best card ever, and it was in a top 8 of the format. All right. And Ancient Gear Advance, or whatever the card is still 33, and I ain't seen any Ancient Gear decks being played, so, like, what's the hold up, So it's like, I based on where the points list has been and the changes that have been made are positive, I love them, but in the context of the full year anniversary that we've had with Genesys, it's not fulfilling what its design was supposed to be, So I'm very conflicted.
I was just going to say, one thing that happens a decent amount when you're trying to manage formats with points lists is it gets challenging to interpret the metagame outcomes based on your changes. If you make too many changes in one go, it can be hard to evaluate, like, oh, this is happening because of this point lowering, or this is happening because we added this to the list. There's like a lot of kind of like glut in the data that you're getting. And I do wonder if that's factoring in to their decisions to be like a bit more slow in their response to certain things. They're trying to like parse through what actually matters, versus just like making some kind of like snap reaction where you change 60 or 70 or 80 cards in one go, because theoretically you could based on like the data, but then like you're basically creating an entirely new format, and it's as though we're starting from a year ago again. And so I think that's part of why they're potentially being a bit more measured in their removal of cards or their reductions of cards.
I think it's a good point, because it would be a lot. But this leads to a point that I actually tweeted about. I made a thread on this, where I think a really awesome engagement-focused thing they could do is an anniversary points update. I think this would be like the coolest thing ever, is that they go, we've had Genesys for a year. It was in beta for 1/2, 2/3 of the year. We've had the WCQ, NAGC event for it. We know what cards aren't seeing success and have seen minimal play. We are going to do a full list based solely on reductions in points for the decks that have not performed since we made the initial list. And then just boom, like you see a bunch of green line items on that list that just reduces the points in all of these archetypes that haven't been played. And I think that would be super exciting. A lot of people would really love that, and it would absolutely drive interest in the format way up, because it is people's main criticism.
I guess that's a good enough point to get to this final thing, which is if you could identify one thing you would want Genesys to improve in order to, I guess, secure the next year of Genesisery, what would it be?
I don't think I have to expound on it more than that.
Yeah, you want the big drawdown list.
Yeah, it is. I can't highlight it enough that is the biggest frustration from the community. I hope I don't know if Konami's gonna like watch this or whatever, but I hope that they see that as the major frustration that people have, and it would drive a lot of interest. It would be a good update. It would be seen as like an olive branch to the community, because that's the biggest thing of feedback that people have. Like I can't stress enough that is just what I feel would make the format even more successful going into its second year.
Yeah, I think like the biggest softball obviously is like they need to get it on some kind of digital client, right? Like that's like I don't think that's even like that much of like a point really. Like obviously it would be better if you could play it on Master Duel and you could actually like officially play Genesys, both for like the sake of content creators and being able to create content around the format more easily, but also just like for getting people into the format who maybe like are fitting into one of those boxes that we talked about at the start of the show, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I am a lapsed Yugist, but I have a Master Duel account with the old cards that I used to like playing, and now the Genesys is there, I could go try it there, for example. I think that that's like the biggest thing that they could do. It's like the single most healthy thing that could happen for the format. And what's interesting, I will note, like Magic the Gathering Arena did something kind of like this, where they created a pseudo version of the Pioneer format on Arena, where they didn't have all the cards yet, but they had most of them. And so they just created another format that was kind of like, the conceit was, look, this is Arena Pioneer. It's not quite what you want, but they could do something like that even, and just say like, look, we recognize that maybe there's going to have to be like a couple of balance adjustments because we don't have absolutely everything in the client yet, but like, we'll give you something at least so that people could at least start engaging with both the deck building process and the gameplay experience of Genesys.
I'd echo that. That was mine as well. Is it's got to get on a client. It is. I mean, it's embarrassing that myself and a whole bunch of other people are trying to make Genesys content, but like Konami doesn't like when you use non-official simulators, but there is no official way to play this game. Like nothing is up to date with card releases, and nothing, and we are unwilling to do the arena style. We're not there yet, but this is sort of Pioneer thing with like the cards in Master Duel. So I don't know. You know, I wish they would.
It's crazy because it's a softball too. Like it is just like such a way that you would like make sales by giving people something else to play. Like, yeah, it's just, it would let people make content about the game. Content is ultimately what drives interest in like the modern day and age. Like this is how people hear about playing Yu-Gi-Oh! As they see videos. It's, yeah, I don't know.
Who knows? That's Konami, baby.
From your perspective as somebody who is like a Magic player, hearing about the things that Arena does in contrast to what Master Duel does, it's like Arena's like an actual game, it feels like. You know, Master Duel has had one game mode in its entire release state to this whole time. It's had ranked. You know, of course there's like solo mode, sure.
And there's like events that are, you know, little fun deck building challenges, but largely it is just the one way to play.
If they want to build an alternate format for Yu-Gi-Oh, you have to make it playable everywhere. And you have the most popular, I'm sorry, Master Duel is the best TCG client ever. It is beautiful. It's smooth. It moves like butter. It is just, it's all of its UI is like fantastic. Like it is just the best. Sure, I'm biased because I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh player, but I've played other simulators. It's incredible. So if you want interest for this format to grow worldwide, put it in Master Duel. Program something, anything. Like God.
Duel Links has 3 permanent PvP modes. Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Seriously. Like, they have character duels, rush duel, and speed duel, right? That's what Duel Links has.
Yes.
What are we doing, bro? Like, I it's just jaw drop. Ah, like
yeah.
Like,
okay,
anyway,
I mean, Magic Online, a famously spaghetti code program, like added pre-modern and like Brawl this year, which are both community managed formats, and they just said, yeah, you know what, we'll add those to our officially supported client, no worries. It's like
people
it's kind of
playing
crazy.
more Mir Vig on Moto in 2011, like fucking hell.
Yeah, it might have even been even earlier than that. What shocks me, this is maybe too much of a tangent, I don't know how someone from Konami has not said to Doug, like, let's get Saga on Master Duel and convince people to buy 10 master packs and 10 secret packs to go play in an event. Like they would just make infinite money getting people able to play Saga as an event on Master Duel and as a format. Yeah. But that's a completely different topic.
Yeah. And Konami's partnered with him. Like they know he does Saga. There's a reason they partner with him, you know? Like
On that note, I do appreciate that you were able to come by and have a traditional Yu-Gi-Oh Yap session that, like all, ended with us angry at Konami. But thank you both for coming by and talking about the first year of Genesys. I know that I am, you know, obviously incredibly biased as to its success, but I hope that that things do continue to be good and get better in the future, because I do want something like this to exist in the space. Again, thank you both so much for coming by. LC, if people want to find you, where could they do it?
It's just on YouTube. I am remarkably challenging to find on other social media outlets. So it's my channel here at LC It's ELCEE. And yeah, other than that, I'm not really on the Twitter or anything of that ilk.
Peeps, what's the deal with you, Peeps? It's like if someone wants to reach you, all they have to do is have a bad opinion and like say it into the ether,
and I'll
you'll
just
come by
show
and
up
kill
at
them.
their door. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
crash through their ceiling. Yeah, I say this a lot. Anytime I get in a discussion about Genesys, is because it inevitably boils down to me like having a few specific complaints that I try to justify and harp on. But I do love it. I love this format a lot. I really wish people would play it more. And yeah, I fully support it. I think it is doing a lot of things that are going well, and I have a positive outlook for its future. So yeah.
All right. Bye-bye. Goodbye. That's it.
Bye.
Bye.